to make it $7 an hour. So I told her, you better stay with her mom for me.
Hey, Jillian, how are you? Good.
I'm still not used to how bright it is in here now.
Again?
I'm still not used to how bright it is in here now.
We had a forum in here the other night, the neighborhood council forum. It was actually pretty good.
I saw someone complaining about you being in the mayor's seat in that forum. Did you see that on the internet?
No, seriously? Like,
They're like, they were the only white person in the mayor's seat.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then someone said they're alphabetical.
How's your family faring?
Thank you for asking. Thank you for. Yeah,
Yeah, because they assigned you, right?
we're just alphabetical.
They did alphabetically. Yeah. So anyway, I think they were worried that it was like a, favoritism thing. But it was just
Good time.
the alphabet.
Jump on
Oh.
That was lovely when you shared.
Hey, how are you?
Lovely when you shared that hymn. That's nice.
Bill, you're not tired of those forums yet? You're not tired of those forums yet?
Yeah, I think you did really good.
It wasn't my fault.
Oh no, there's gonna be some after the primary.
Today is the 18th.
Several more before the primary.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, my God. There's only 4 for president.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Durham City Council meeting to order at 7 o'clock on the 18th of September. I'd like to welcome all of you that are here with us this evening. If we could just take a moment for silent meditation, please. Thank you. I would ask the clerk if she would call the roll.
Mayor Bell,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Cole-McFadden,
President,
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Moffitt,
Here.
Councilmember Reece,
Here.
and Councilmember Shule.
Here.
Okay, went a little bit out of order. I recognize Councilman Davis for the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have the distinct honor to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening, by one of our own who has journeyed just a little bit eastward and now serves as the police chief in the town of Morrisville. It's our honor to have the pledge led by Chief Patrice Andrews.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Chief.
Yes, sir. Good. Good.
Yes.
Were you going to do anything else?
Matt, what?
Were you going to do anything else?
Yes, I'll do it through my comments.
Okay, thank you. This evening we have several proclamations, but we also have our monthly recognition of the Neighborhood Spotlight Award. And this is given to a person in the community that's selected by a person in the community that volunteers to do a lot of things and help and improve their communities. And we're pleased this evening to recognize Lindsay Kennedy, if she would join me, please. And you can bring anyone else that you'd like to bring also. Come on. Great, how you doing? How you doing? The Neighborhood Spotlight Award is presented to Lindsay Kennedy in recognition of valuable contributions to the Rockwood neighborhood. And she's recognized for a lot of the things she does, not limited to, but including hosting a variety of events to increase involvement in the neighborhood school, Lakewood Elementary School, by leveraging local resources to improve the community atmosphere at the schools through picnic tables and swing sets and et cetera, and working with staff and school staff and parents to increase fellowship within the Lakewood area. It's signed by Thomas J. Bonfield, the city manager, and myself, William V. Bill Bell, mayor of the city of Durham. And we'd like to present this to Ms. Kennedy, and certainly for any remarks. If anyone else is from the Rockwood neighborhood, if you would stand, if you're out there, I'd like to recognize you. Thank you, Patrick. Great. So I'd like to, she's waving to you. Thomas, waving.
Just wanted to say that Durham makes it really easy to be a great neighbor. So thanks for everything you guys do to make Durham an awesome place to live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura, did you get a picture?
Down here? Fine. Where's- The next proclamation recognizes Constitution Week, Constitution Day and Citizens Day proclamation. Ms. Patricia Poe, dressed appropriately, a member of the General Davy chapter. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas our founding fathers, in order to secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and their posterity, did ordain and establish the Constitution for the United States of America. Whereas the culmination of months of deliberations, debate, and compromise on September 17th, 1787, the Constitution of the United States of America was signed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Whereas on September 17th, 2017, marks the 230th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. Whereas through all of its changes over the years, the Constitution's foundation has endured and adapted and remains the supreme law of our land. Whereas Constitution Day and Citizens Day are celebrated on September 17th each year during the celebration of Constitution Week, September 17th through September 23rd, whereas adoption of the Constitution and independence guaranteed to American citizens, whether by birth or by naturalization, should be celebrated by appropriate ceremonies and activities during Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, William V. Bill Bell, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim September 17th through September 23rd, 2017 as Constitution Week and September 17th, 2017 as Constitution Day and Citizens Day in Durham, and encourage all and call upon the residents of Durham to observe this day to bring together governmental, civic, social, and educational leaders to conduct ceremonies and programs that bring together community members to reflect on the importance of active citizenship, recognize the enduring strength of our Constitution, and reaffirm our commitment to the rights and obligations of citizenship in this great nation. And with this in my hand, corporate seal of the City of Durham, this 18th day of September, I'm going to present this to Ms. Poe for any comments you may have.
Thank you.
So good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, City of Durham, for recognizing a very important document that was written 230 years ago. These founding fathers were so brilliant that they produced a document that was a living document, which meant it could be changed, it could be amended, it would grow with the population. This was considerable forethought for men in 1787 to do this. And we are so proud of our Constitution that every year we, the Daughters of the American Revolution, always celebrate it with activities with our community and our school. I was just at the schools. I was just at Centerfest this weekend, and I just wanted to say how heartening and uplifting it was to have the reaction of the thousands of people that walked by our booth that was shared by Voyager Academy High School to hear their words of amazement and encouragement, and to hear that we are the world's oldest, most enduring document, our Constitution of a pretty young nation. We have lasted so long, and we will last longer, and we are so happy to be celebrating with you. So thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor Bell.
Next, I'd like to invite Wanda Boone and Wanda is the founder of Together for Rebuilding Youth, known as TRI. And this is presented recognizing the work that her organization does under her leadership. And we're appreciative of what you do, Wanda. You do a great job, and sometimes you don't get enough thanks for it, especially from your mayor. But you do a great job. Whereas according to the 2015 Durham County YRBS, 28% of high school students reported feelings of depression in the past year, feeling so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row that they stopped doing usual activities. And whereas 14% of high school students make a plan to attempt suicide, 65% of high school students have seen other students being bullied, and 16% of high school students have carried a weapon, that is a gun, a knife, or a club, to school in the past 30 days. And 25% of high school students had one or more drinks of alcohol in the past month, and 9% of high school students smoked cigarettes in the past month. 24% of high school students used electronic vapor products use. 22% of high school students smoked marijuana in the past month. 15% of high school students have taken a prescriptive drug without a prescription in the past month. And 41% of high school students use a computer for entertainment for more than 3 hours on an average school day. Now, therefore, I, William V. Billbell, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of September as Try-Zero Month, the plan for zero initiative of Together for Resilient Youth in Durham, and hereby urge all citizens to take special note of this observance and in recognition of the positive impact of prevention and Durham Try in our community. And with my hand, Corporate Seal of the City of Durham, this 18th day of September 2017. I'm going to present this to Wanda, and I'm sure she has comments, but I guess when you look at these percentages of our young people that are involved, it just, you have to be troubled in some cases, but you also have to have hope, and that's why we have organizations like you to give them hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You know, as disheartening as those statistics sound, there was a time when they were much higher. So the work of TRI and many other organizations in Durham have helped to lower the statistics. When we think about hopelessness, and that really is key, we also want to think about resilience, because if we build resilience in young people, which means the ability to bounce back, then that hopelessness will be diminished. And when that is diminished, then there's less of an opportunity for them to participate in some of the other things we talked about, such as substance use, such as suicide attempts. And so that's where we start. We start with resilience. The other thing is holding young people solely responsible for, you can fill in the blank, is like holding fish responsible for dying in a polluted stream. We as adults are responsible for giving children the tools, the environment that they need in order to succeed. So yes, we do a lot of work with children, but we also do a lot of work with adults so that they can understand the dangers that never existed before, the images that never existed before, the peer pressure that's never existed before. Lastly, I will say on Saturday, we had an event which was our overdose prevention event. And there were 2 families there who had lost their teenage children through overdose. We also have 2 other families that are members of our coalition. And so we were able to not only support them, but to give the community tools in order to respond to this terrible epidemic. And gosh, there's so many other things I could say. However, there's room for you. If you'd like to help us, just go to durhamtry.org and you'll see the many opportunities. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite Ms. Margaret Cannell, Executive Director of North Carolina Operation Lifesaver, to join me. This recognizes rail safety, whereas the City of Durham is a supporter of highway, rail grade crossings and pedestrian safety programs, whereas collisions between trains and motor vehicles or pedestrians could be prevented by increased public awareness of the dangers at crossings and around railroad property and of the appropriate safety laws, whereas North Carolina Operation Lifesaver is the foremost public information and education program dedicated to preventing highway, rail grade crossing crashes and pedestrian railroad trespass incidents, whereas during the week of September 24th through September 30th, 2017, and throughout the year, all citizens are encouraged to observe added caution as motorists or pedestrians near tracks or trains, whereas this important observance should lead to greater safety, awareness, and a reduction in highway, rail grade crossings, crashes, and pedestrian railroad incidents. Now, therefore, I, William V. Billwell, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, on behalf of the Durham City Council, do hereby proclaim September 24th through September 30th, 2017 as Rail Safety Week, and witness in my hand in Corpus Hill, the City of Durham, North Carolina, this 18th day of September 2017, and I'm going to present this to you for comments that you may have.
Thank you.
You want to do it now? I'm on the North Carolina Railroad Board, so I know they're very appreciative of this proclamation.
Thank you so much. And as you said, North Carolina Railroad Company is a proud partner with North Carolina Operation Lifesaver, as is North Carolina Department of Transportation Rail Division and Be Rail Safe. This is one of those campaigns that seems like it should be common sense to stay away from railroad tracks. Unfortunately, common sense is a flower that doesn't grow in everyone's garden, and that's why we're here. North Carolina is actually 8th in the nation in the number of trespass fatalities and 16th in the number of highway rail collisions where a vehicle impacts with a train. And one of the things that I'm working towards is to let those numbers go up. This is one of those cases where you want to be higher in the rankings rather than lower in the rankings. So on behalf of Operation Lifesaver and Rail Safety Advocates, thank you very much for your support.
And last but not least, I'd like to ask Assistant Chief Eddie Sarvis if he would join me. This proclamation recognizes the work of forensics in solving crimes not only in our community, I guess, but throughout the nation, but specifically here in Durham. Whereas forensic science is a vital public service and access to quality forensic analysis dramatically improves the investigation of criminal activity, leading to the exoneration of the innocent and the prosecution of the guilty, whereas the Forensic Services Unit of the Durham Police Department plays a critical role in public outreach and crime prevention and is evolving in its role as an important member of the criminal justice community. Whereas in 2009, DPD hired its first full-time latent examiner and more than doubled the number of suspects identification in a year. Whereas in 2011, DPD Forensic Services launched its first ever firearms testing laboratory, achieving efficiencies in evidence processing and helping minimize the number of cold leads. Whereas 2013, DPD Forensic Services became the first agency in North Carolina to receive accreditation by the International Organization for Standardization, International Electrotechnical Commission, and whereas DPD's Forensic Services Unit is comprised mainly of non-sworn professionals, including authorized positions for 12 crime scene investigators, 4 crime scene specialists, 2 latent examiners, 2 digital forensic specialists, 1 firearms and tool mark examiner, 1 firearms analysis, and 2 forensic supervisors, all of whom are trained to provide unbiased, accurate, and reliable analysis of evidence recovered. Whereas DPD forensics professionals, on average, respond to approximately 2,500 calls a year, collect about 11,000 pieces of evidence, process 2,100 prints, and make 1,400 identifications, handle 770 firearms, and conduct 330 comparisons, and respond to 865 calls for digital forensic services. Whereas the hard-working employees of DPD Forensic Services, along with their professional peers and forensic science organizations across the world, deserve universal regard and appreciation for their commitment to proper scientific investigations for the cause of justice. Now, therefore, I, William V. Bill Bell, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2017 as National Forensic Science Week in Durham, and urge residents to express their appreciations for the people, the facilities, and technologies that make reliable forensic science possible in the city of Durham, North Carolina, and throughout the nation. And witness my hand, Corpus Hill, City of Durham, today, the 18th to 17th. I'm going to present this to Chief Sarvis for comments.
Thank you, Mayor Bell, members of council. When it comes to forensic sciences, the citizens of Durham have a lot to be proud of with their forensics division. Most municipalities in North Carolina do not have any type of forensics division at all, any kind of dedicated forensics. We're lucky enough to have a staff of about 24 people, so we have a very robust forensics unit. I do have a few of our leaders, our leadership team here today I would like to recognize. The commander of that division, Captain Denise Campbell. Ms. Heather Madry is the supervisor of our crime scene unit. And Ms. Donna Jackson is the supervisor of our crime lab unit. So these ladies and all the employees of the division put in a lot of work every day. They just don't know how valuable they are to the Durham Police Department, to the citizens of Durham. Thank you very much for your support over the many years, and we appreciate all the continued support we will see.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize council members for comments, and I'm going to start with Councilman Davis, if you don't mind, then the Mayor Pro Tem, and in that order, and Councilman Reece.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. This is a wonderful segue to move from the great work that our forensics department of the Durham Police Department into the comments that I want to make about the outstanding young lady who just led us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All of us are aware of the fact that Chief Patrice Andrews worked very hard in the Durham Police Department in many different capacities, and we are very proud to have her to come back home. In many ways, Thomas Wolfe used to say, you may not be able to go home again, but you certainly are welcome always here in Durham. We also want to recognize that Chief Andrews will be joining our Chief Davis along with the police chiefs in, help me if I'm wrong here, in Raleigh, Fayetteville, Winston-Salem, and Havelock as 6 different African-American women in North Carolina who are chiefs of police. So I think that's going to be a wonderful program. I believe it's going to be aired on Tuesday of next week, the 26th, in the 9 o'clock segment of the Today Show with Megyn Kelly, I believe.
Yes.
So we're real proud to have her here for that reason. We also are very pleased to have her here because she is one of the offspring of a young man who did something very courageous in September of 1959. Her father, Mr. Henry Vickers, was one of 6 young African-American students who integrated integrated the Durham City Schools. That was 58 years ago. And when we see our young people going into schools today in multiracial situations, without any regard in many cases to race, it's because of the pioneering work that Ms. Andrews' father and others did. It's important for us to recognize that. It's also important for us to know that there is a plaque in the southernmost building on the campus of the Durham School of the Arts. And I refer to it that way because there was recently a name removal, and there is, that building is no longer named the Carr Building, but it was at that Carr Building that Mr. Vickers and Andre McKissick walked into. And there is an iconic photograph of them walking in that appeared in what was at that point the Durham Morning Herald, with them walking in with Mr. and Mrs. Floyd McKissick. So that is really important for us to recognize and to remember that that day was very, very iconic in the education and the issue of equality and justice here in North Carolina, in Durham. I want to mention the other names of the people who were those pioneers. Along with Mr. Vickers was Larry Skurlock, Jocelyn McKissick, Andre McKissick Julian, Lucy Mae Jones Flagler, Claudette Brame Bridgeford, and Anita Brame Hill. So we need to honor those folks, and we are here asking Ms. Chief Andrews if she would stand and just allow us to applaud those folks in their absence. Now that was 1959. In just a few years after that, a second wave of school integration came in Durham because those 7 were the only 7 African Americans there for those next few years. But I want to let you know that we are lucky enough to have sitting on this panel a young lady who brought about the second wave of integration at Durham High School and other schools here in Durham. She is nobody else other than our own Cora Cole-McFadden.
Thank you, sir.
So I just want to thank you so much. And it's interesting that today's Herald Sun editorial page carries an op-ed piece by Steve Unruh, who is the vice chair of the Durham Public Schools Board of Education, and talks a little bit about that name change and about the whole concept of where we are in terms of equity and excellence in the Durham City Schools, Durham Public Schools. So we want to thank Ms. Andrews, Chief Andrews, for being here, and thank all of the people who were those pioneers. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Eddie. That was very appropriate, and sometimes we always need these reminders, and this is a good time to have that. Tell your father I said hello. I want to recognize the Mayor Pro Tem and then Councilman Reece and Councilman Schewel in that order.
Yeah, I was so proud to learn today from CJ, Chief Davis, about the appearance on the Today Show. That's amazing. But I wanted to thank Wanda and Earl Boone for their unwavering commitment to, in essence, saving our youth, not just in your neighborhood, but youth all over Durham. So we are really indebted to you for your unselfishness, not focusing on where you are, but focusing on children all over Durham. And we owe you another round of applause for that. And while I have the mic, Patricia, I am so proud of you. I know your roots and your DNA, so I understand why you are so great today. Thank you so much. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Recognize Councilman Reece.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On October 19th, just almost exactly 1 month from now, Durham will participate in a program called Read for the Record. This is the world's largest shared reading experience. It's run by a national nonprofit called Jumpstart. And on that date, an estimated 2 million people across the country will take part in reading the same book across the country. Last year, Mr. Mayor, I believe you participated in this event along with several police officers and about 24 volunteers of a local nonprofit called Book Harvest. This year, Book Harvest is hoping to encourage all the members of our local elected boards to participate in the Read for the Record project. This year, the book that we'll be reading is called Quackers. It is a quirky tale of standing out, fitting in, and building a life with room for all, which I think is a great message for kids to hear. I've already volunteered for that morning because, of course, we have a work session that afternoon. But in the next couple of days, you'll be hearing either from me or from Ginger Young, who's the director of Book Harvest, to try to get you guys signed up to help out with being part of this really extraordinary experience that we can take part in right here in Durham. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Quite welcome. Recognize Councilman Shule.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This coming Thursday, we have a work session. That's also Rosh Hashanah, which is one of the holiest days of the Jewish year, one of the high holy days. So I'll be missing the work session, and at the appropriate time, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate if the council would grant me an excused absence.
That's so moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote? Close the vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Quite welcome. Are there any other comments by members of the council?
I do have one, Mr. Mayor. While Wanda and Earl are here, I would like to appeal to the community to become mentors for our young people. The mayor made that clarion call years and years and years ago, and we need more people. We need more of the village to be a part of helping to change the trajectory of the lives of so many young people in Durham. Please, please, please reach out and touch a young person. It can be very emotionally costly and financially costly, but when you look at a life that you're saving, it's worth everything. Thank you for your work.
All right. Move to the priority items first with the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone, members of council. This evening, we have one priority item from the administration, which is agenda item number 22. It's a supplemental item. It is a public hearing on the zoning map change for 117 Goodwin. This item was properly advertised, but inadvertently left off of the agenda when the work session was presented to council, but it is a supplemental item this evening.
Entertain a motion on the.
Move, so move.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote, please? Close the vote.
It passes 7-0.
Thank you.
All right. Recognize the city attorney for any priority items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No priority items.
And likewise, city clerk.
No items, Mr. Mayor.
We'll proceed with the agenda. First part of the agenda is consent agenda items, which may be passed with a single vote. If a member of the council, a member of the audience requests a consent agenda item to be removed, we remove it and discuss it later in the agenda. Item 1 is approval of city council minutes. Item 3 is request to carry over funds from fiscal year 2016-2017 to fiscal year 2017-2018 budget and other budget grant and capital improvement plan ordinances. Item 4 is universal release of NCR 88 restrictive covenants and reversions. Item 5 is a municipal agreement between the Durham Chapel Carrboro Metropolitan Planning Organization and North Carolina Department of Transportation for the NC 54 corridor study. Item 6 is interlocal agreement with North Carolina Department of Transportation and the City of Raleigh for the Regional Intelligent Transportation System Deployment Plan for the Triangle. Item 7 is a resolution to support the Vision Zero Durham initiative. Item 8 is proposed amendments to the city manager's authority to conduct real estate transactions. Item 9 is donation of excess seating at the Durham Performing Arts Center. Item 10 is acceptance of donation of vacant 68.1 acre parcel for Valley Springs Road and Rivermont Road, parcel ID 21-2017. Item 11 is interdenominational agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey for operation and maintenance of the City of Durham Rainfall and Stream Flow Network. Item 12 is sewer-only utility extension agreement with Anita Harwood to serve 3909 Wake Forest Highway. Item 13 is amendment number 5 to the scrap tire disposal recycling service contract between the City of Durham and Central Carolina Holdings, LLC. Items 18 and 19 are items that can be found on the general business agenda as public hearings. Item 21 is an item that can be found on the general business agenda. I entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda items.
So moved. Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote? Close the vote.
It passes 7-0.
We'll move to the general business agenda, item 21, social media policy for elected officials.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask if anyone signed up to speak on that item?
We don't have one signed up. Do we need a presentation on it?
We don't, Mr. Mayor. If I could briefly be heard on that.
Say what?
If I could briefly be heard on this matter.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to thank the staff for all the hard work they put into getting this policy where it is right now. I know some of that work was made more difficult by a number of revisions that I proposed during this process, as well as some of my other colleagues on the council. I heard from a number of Durham residents earlier today about this agenda item and would like the opportunity to have the Council Procedures Committee take another look at the policy with an eye to inviting a number of folks to come to the next Procedures Committee meeting to talk about some of the perceived shortcomings of the policy. Sitting in your email inboxes now, although I suspect many of you may not have seen it, is an email from Jonathan Jones, who's the director of the North Carolina Open Government Coalition. Jonathan spoke with me about this matter late this afternoon and asked that we delay action on this matter so that he could share his thoughts with us about some of the shortcomings of the policy. I have seen the email. I have not read it because it is quite lengthy, and I've frankly been in this meeting with you guys. But I do think his perspective as an advocate for open government is worthy of consideration in this matter, and so would merely ask that this particular item be referred back to the Procedures Committee in an appropriate time when we can schedule a meeting and have Jonathan and maybe some other folks come and talk to us about their concerns. I would also mention that I spoke with Beverly earlier this afternoon and informed her that it was my intention to make this proposal. I apologize to her then. I apologize to staff and my colleagues now for not having appropriately raised this issue earlier in the process. But I think it's never too late to try to do the right thing, and I'd like to have the Procedures Committee take another look at this, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have any other discussions or comments on this item?
Mayor Pro Tem.
I just
The Mayor Pro
want to
Tem and
hear
then
from
Councilman Margaret.
Beverly if she has any response, since she's the key person on this. Good evening.
Everybody. Mayor, Council, Beverly Thompson, Public Affairs Director. It is your policy, and I definitely want to make it all that you want it to be. And if there's a way or information that we need to hear, I'm certainly open to that and working with you to accomplish that.
Thank you.
Well, it is my hope that in the meantime, that we will not use the council's account for any personal opinions on social media. Thank you. Individual council members using the council account. That's what I meant.
Thank you.
I want to recognize Councilman Margaret, then I'll listen to the manager.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Jones' email came at 6:14. I did have the opportunity. It is lengthy, but I did find it to be very thorough, very thoughtful. He, for example, is concerned that we don't address text messaging as well as social media or email, that we don't really address record retention and some of the, he cites specific policies and invites conversation with the Attorney General's office on some of these issues. And so I found it to be full of information that I didn't have before. And I feel like I support Councilman Reece's recommendation, and if it becomes a motion, I will be happy to second it. Thank you.
Let me ask this question, because we know that you're never going to make anything perfect. I don't care how much time you spend on it. My concern is that we have a policy that I thought the council members were comfortable with. And it at least puts us in a position going forward as to type of how we will conduct ourselves. Now, if people want to add to it, that's fine. But my concern is we've got to wait till we have a procedures committee. I don't know when that's going to happen. Then it's got to come back to the council, and we're going through this whole piece again, and we don't get anything adopted. We can always add on if we think it's appropriate. But we have a document that I thought, again, that this council was comfortable with, and unless somebody's telling me you want to change something with what we got, I don't see no reason why we can't adopt this, still have the procedures committee meeting, have Mr. Jones, whoever it is, come forth and explain what his concerns are or how he wants to make it better. But meanwhile, at least the council will be on record as having a procedures committee in place. We don't have to worry about somebody going off the ship by saying, well, you hadn't adopted anything, so I'm doing what I've been doing all along. And that's the concern that I have with this. Again, I've told you, I don't use social media, so personally, it's not a problem with me. I've said that over and over again. And I shouldn't say I don't use it. I text, I use email, I don't use Facebook, I don't use Instagram, I don't tweet, I don't do all this other stuff. But regardless of that, I think we all know why we adopted this or why we brought it before us. And I just feel that, we can adopt what we've got, let Mr. Jones come in and talk to us, and if we want to make changes, well, at least we have something in place that this council, when we leave here tonight, know how we should conduct ourselves based on what we've already put before us. So that would be my thought about it. I don't have a problem with adding to it, but I just think taking another 2 weeks or another month to put something in place, meanwhile we go with nothing, and somebody says, well, I did this, but you didn't have any guidelines in here, so I didn't know what we were supposed to be doing. At least we know what we don't want you doing, and it's pretty clear in what we have here. So I would prefer if we adopted what we had, set up a procedures committee meeting to let Mr. Jones, whoever come in, have the conversation. And if we need to change something, we can change it. I mean, this wasn't meant to be in stone. It's almost like a living document to a certain extent. But at least we would have something in place. So that would, and I haven't even seen what the gentleman has written. I haven't seen the email. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't distrust what Charlie said, and I accept that and accept what Donna said, but I haven't seen it. But I know what we have seen, and I know what we all came together and agreed on, and I thought we were prepared to adopt it tonight. So I would prefer if we move to adopt it, have the procedures committee set up, have the gentleman come in and have the tit-to-tat we're going to have, and then go out to public meetings, and then if we need to change something, we change it to that. But at least we'd have something in place.
I move adoption of the item as is with openness to do what we need to do after we hear from the gentleman from Raleigh. Is he
No,
from?
he's a Durham resident, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could be heard on that motion?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I take second before you.
Fair point. Mr. Mayor, the other reason I wanted to refer this back to the committee is because of the way that this matter comes before us tonight. As you may or may not be aware, this social media policy was a late addition to our work session agenda 2 weeks ago. It didn't appear on the agenda until at some point on Wednesday, I believe. Is that correct, Beverly? Tuesday, late Tuesday or early Wednesday? Before the work session, that's right. And so anyone who had reviewed the work session before that, the work session agenda before that, would not have seen that the matter was on the agenda, nor would they have known that it was on this agenda if they were relying on that prior work session agenda. And I certainly bear some responsibility for that because it was my revisions to the original draft of the policy that led to the delay in getting that item on the work session agenda in the first place. Having said that, I can tell you that when I publicized this particular agenda item on social media this morning, I got a number of folks who were concerned that this action would be taken tonight and that they had not been aware of it. And that's the other reason I'm asking that we delay so that we can have a fuller airing of the issues raised by the folks who have concerns. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Recognize Councilman Moffitt.
Yes, I understand the concern for needlessly delaying over an extended period of time an action, but it would be relatively, I think we have not had a policy like this in place up to this time, and I think that if we referred it, not back to staff, but if we simply put it back on the our next, next work session agenda, I guess is Thursday, and that's also a short time, but Mr. Reece, how would you feel about just putting it back on the next cycle?
absolutely.
And then Mr. Jones can come and talk to us on Thursday, hopefully. People will have a chance to read his email. And staff can take a look at the content of the email. The city attorney's office can take a look at it. And we can get some advice from staff on Thursday. It's simply a 2-week delay at that point.
So you're taking it out of the hands of the Procedures Committee?
If I'm delighted to have the Procedures Committee work on it, but if time is of the essence, then I would suggest that an alternative to needlessly delaying it further, if that's the concern, is to refer it back to, not simply move it to our work session agenda on Thursday. If the...
This coming Thursday?
Yes. We've done that before.
Again, I'm trying to make sure I understand what the request is. So you're saying at our work session on Thursday, we would have this item there, Mr. whoever it is, and other people would come in, and we would discuss it then? And then what?
Well, then it would be on our, assuming that the council at that point is ready to move it to a action meeting agenda, they would place it on the appropriate agenda and
let me ask this, Don, because, and I'm not, it was a lot of work in the Procedures Committee to get to where we were. And it was, the time was devoted to that. Is the gentleman prepared to take what we've got and give us a markup that we can discuss? I mean, is that where he is?
His notes are very thorough. I'm not.
Well, no, I'm trying to ask, what are we going to have in hand? 'Cause normally we have something in hand when we discuss it. Now, if he's prepared to give us a markup for what he thinks the changes are, so that we can have it come Thursday and discuss it. But we're going to wait until Thursday when he starts discussing it, and then I just don't know where we go from that. If he must have some very specific ideas, I guess.
I believe he does, Mr. Mayor. Once I get a chance to read the email, I can share those with you.
He cites specific sections, specific language, First Amendment concerns, concerns of violation of state law regarding retention of records, And as I said before, the fact that it doesn't actually cover all electronic communication, only social media, all of those are very specific concerns that he raised.
Let's do this then. And I know we've got a motion on the floor to pass what we got, and I know Eddie has his hand up. I would prefer if the gentleman has specific comments that he reduce it to writing, make the changes, mark up what we've got, and get it to the staff so that we can have it in our hands, prepared to discuss it Thursday. Since he's taken that amount of time to tell us what he thinks is wrong, I would ask, would he be willing to do that? Or can he do that?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not the author of the email, sir.
Fine. That's what I'm suggesting. All right.
I can't tell.
I understand. You read it, and I thought you spoken to him?
I have not read the email, Mr. Mayor.
You haven't
I've
read
not read it. I've seen how long it is in my browser while we've been here at this meeting, but I haven't read it.
If we move the item to Thursday, at least gives him the opportunity to address it in the way that you're suggesting.
All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay, Mr. Mayor. Well, I think that this gentleman is, the lengthiness of his email, we're assigning a value to it, and I'm not discounting the value of it, but there may be many people who may have different kinds of concepts about how we deal with this. I like the original idea of going ahead and passing what we put a lot of time and effort into at this point. And going back to what the lady talked about earlier about the Constitution of the United States, we have the flexibility of changing it if we have items that need to improve it, and that we can use the time that will come afterwards to make changes along the way. So I support the motion that's on the floor to adopt the items that we have in front of us, and then to be able to have the flexibility of amending later on.
All right, so further discussion on it. I guess I'm back where I was originally. We would have something in place. It's open to amendment. If somebody wants to come to the work session Thursday and discuss how we amend it, fine. But at least we'd have something in place so nobody goes off the reservation doing something that's not in kind with what we've got and say, well, you didn't have a document in place, so I did what I did.
Mr. Mayor.
Recognize the Mayor Pro Tem.
Are you receiving comments tonight?
Yes, no one has signed up to speak.
There is someone who...
Well, fine. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this item? You can come forward, please, if you state your name and address. Come to the podium here.
Card over here.
You can come over to here. Just, when you come over, you just state your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Angela Holmes, 207 Oaks Road. I was asked to be here by Ms. Gray regarding this policy. I sent out an email. First, I should say I'm the county homeless representative, and I'm also the chair of the Homeless Services Advisory Committee. I get calls 24/7 from homeless people needing help. This means a lot to me. So I sent out an email. A young lady called me, begged me for help, and I sent out an email, mass email, 78 people on it, trying to get help from her, for her. I contacted Ms. Marshall from the school system, and I believe she contacted the Boones, and they paid for the hotel for her for the weekend, and we thank you very much for that. But I gave Ms. Chantel's name out. I think that was one of the reasons I was asked to be here for the policy, because I gave her name out, because she asked me and gave me permission to give her name to get help for her and her children. So I'll let Ms. Scott speak.
Hello. Me and my children just moved here from Atlanta.
Could you just state your name again, please, ma'am?
My name is Chantel Scott. Me and my children just moved here from Atlanta, and I have a few family members here, but I don't have anyone here. And I didn't know where to go or where to look or where to turn until someone introduced me to Miss Angela Holmes. And yes, she asked me you know, if it was okay to use my name, yes, because I think it's, I mean, if a person gets to know you or know you by name, they might, you know, show a little sympathy, a little empathy, and try to help you. It was only a few people who stepped up to help me and my children, and I have a 15-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 2-year-old. We have, the shelters are completely full. We have nowhere to go. I have been in a hotel for the past 3 weeks. I work at Duke University as a parking attendant. So it's not like, you know, I'm one of the type of people that's out here not doing anything, because I'm doing everything that I can to survive for me and my family. And for her to be reprimanded for using my name, I think is totally ludicrous, because she is actually helping me. No one else is bothered to help, but it's so many people that say they want to help, but don't do anything at all. But sit there and say, oh, well, I wish I could, or no, I can't, or I'm gonna try. But she actually does. And I feel like that was truly a disgrace. I mean, it hurt my feelings, because she's the only one that has ever helped me since I've been in Durham. And I've been here since June. I have been bouncing around with family and friends. And, you know, when I was here 2 years ago, pregnant with my daughter, I slept in the car for 4 days before I got into urban ministry. And it's sad, you know, that somebody is actually out here trying to help, and no one's helping her to help. And people say they want to see people off the street, but in actuality, they don't, if it does not benefit them. But no one's seeing what happens in the long run, that if I get my foundation, I can take off and be a better parent for my kids. I don't have my 2-year-old. She's in New Jersey, because I cannot provide for her. But my other two are in school. And regardless of what me and my kids go through, we stick together and we stay together. And I will not allow the system to say, no, I can't, because I will. At the end of the day, I have to make sure that me and my children are straight. And Miss Angela has helped me do that. So for people to say, oh, well, that was wrong, I don't see nothing wrong with it. I would see something wrong if she did not do what she did. Because in the midst of all of that, I prayed to my God, and I got blessed with a 3-bedroom apartment because of her.
May I interrupt for just a minute, please? First of all, I appreciate what you've told us. I appreciate the assistance you've gotten. But I really don't think it's relevant to the issue we're discussing here this evening.
Policies and procedures of emails.
No, it's not.
I got the email sent to me.
No. This is relative to council persons primarily.
No, sir. It includes.
It's staff and et cetera, but it's not the public piece.
They told me to come here tonight to speak about your new policies and procedures that I have to email about your new policies.
Who told you to do that?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
maybe I can clear this up. At the work session, Councilmember Moffitt asked that I send the policy out to the chairs of all the boards, committees, and commissions.
Oh.
She is the chair of the Homeless Service Advisory Commission.
okay.
So I don't, you know, the policy was attached, you know, if they wanted to, had concerns, wanted to speak on the policy for elected officials and board members also. So that's what I sent out, so.
So you're responding as the chair of the homeless committee? Okay.
If I'm doing something wrong and send an email, please let me know.
Can I just real quick?
So I can correct that.
The email was not sent to you as a way to reprimand you at all. It had nothing to do with the email you sent on behalf of this person.
I've gotten other emails.
No, that I don't know anything about, but I'm sure someone would be happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
You received the email because you're the chair of one of our city boards and commissions, and the policy that we are discussing creates certain standards for an official social media account for one of our boards and commissions. That has nothing to do with what you're talking about, so it doesn't really impact what we're talking about right now. Having said that, I do want to learn more about the situation that you're talking about, and so hopefully staff can help us understand what happened there, and we can figure out what comes next.
All right, thank you for your time.
Wish you the very best.
Thank you. Okay, I guess we're back to where we were initially. As I understand the motion is to adopt the policy that we have, but still leave it open. Go ahead, Councilman Moffitt.
No, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to suggest an amendment to it once you've clarified. I can support this motion if it includes a directive for the city manager's office and the city attorney's office to review the email from the director of the, excuse me, it's coming up, the director of North Carolina Open Government Coalition, and report to council at our work session on Thursday, so that it's on the agenda for if we approve it tonight, it's on the agenda for Thursday. We get a report on the content of the email, and Mr. Jones and any other interested parties have an opportunity to talk to us so that we can, in fact, consider amendments to it.
That seems a reasonable approach.
Mr. Mayor, if we are about to vote, now I do see 4 votes to approve the policy as written. I'm going to move to make a couple of revisions to the policy, which I had hoped to make at the Procedures Committee with the advice of the folks who were out in the community concerned about this. But since I can count to 4 and it looks like we're going to pass it tonight, I would like to propose a couple of revisions to the policy, if that's acceptable to you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, that's perfect.
Excellent. In item number 3 on page 1, in the second sentence of that item, the sentence begins, officials should not post or share information known to be false, comma, or a statement in general circulation without confirmation or certainty as to the facts, comma, about the city, its employees, et cetera. The parenthetical that begins, or a statement in general circulation and ends with, as to the facts, is incredibly vague. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, and I would propose that we remove that provision. Item number 3 already contains dictates to members of this board that we should be honest and accurate when posting information, should correct mistakes, and not post or share information known to be false. I believe the additional parenthetical, I don't know how we're supposed to judge whether or not a member of this body is in violation of that provision. I don't believe there's any way to accurately tell that, and I would propose to remove it.
That's after the comma, after false?
Yes.
And up to the comma after facts?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so I would move that we redact that from the policy before voting on it tonight.
What's the next one? What's the next one?
Sorry, yes, okay. The next one is, and I don't have anything prepared for this, but our friend, anyway, a member of the community reached out about item number 5 in the parenthetical that begins in the second line of item number 5, e.g. to circumvent election or campaign requirements, comma, to campaign for re-election on professional social media accounts, comma, and then it goes on. It's actually Jackie Brown brought up that doesn't prohibit members from advocating for other candidates for public office from their professional or official social media accounts. That should also be inappropriate under this policy, and would propose something to fix that, which I don't have written because I didn't think we were going to get this far. So.
Well, can we earmark that then to be looked at?
What about?
You say you don't have a proposal?
Sure.
Yeah, Beverly's.
Okay.
Staff may have, you have a comment?
I just wanted to ask for confirmation on what the matter, or what you were trying to say with that.
The
one,
concern
I
is that the provision is written prohibits members from using their own professional or official social media account to advocate for their own reelection, which is certainly a prohibition that should stay in the policy. But members should also be prohibited from using their professional or official social media accounts for advocating for the election of any other candidate for public office.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Certainly, we can make that more clear.
Thank you.
Did you have another one, Charlie?
I don't. Those are the 2 I have. Thank you.
Recognize Councilman Marfin.
Yes, Mr. Jones, one of the things that he brings up since we're doing this is the 3rd paragraph states that when an elected or appointed official conducts any business, and then goes on to say, the city-related communications, current policy says, may be considered a public record. And Mr. Jones says there is no may about it. These communications shall be considered a public record. So that's a 3rd change that I would suggest.
Tell me which one you're looking at. Where is that?
What number?
Yeah.
I'm looking
The
now.
3rd paragraph on the 1st page, I believe.
The 3rd paragraph on the 1st page.
Is that right?
It says if an elected.
So I'm trying to find it in the document.
Maybe I'm wrong.
All right, so it's in the
He
kind of
says the third
preamble,
paragraph.
preamble section. It's not in the guidelines.
Oh,
Mr. Mayor, when you get a chance.
yeah.
Oh, yes, okay. Third paragraph, second line, the last word on the second line is may, and it would be to change that word to shall. The city-related communications shall be considered a public record, subject to North Carolina Public Records Law.
Councilmember Moffitt, if I could just be heard on that, I think my concern with making that change here is that that's language I would want to be vetted through the city attorney's office because it's established. My sense of this policy is that it's not intended to litigate what is and is not a public record. The language was chosen to be as expansive as possible and say, it may be, it almost certainly is, but for these purposes, it may be.
Yeah, I'm going to withdraw because what you helped me remember is that my addition was that it would be on the agenda on Thursday and we'll be able to discuss issues like this on Thursday. I withdraw my comment.
Thank you. Okay. Did Councilman Shule, did you have?
Yes.
Had you finished, Councilman Margaret?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Shule.
So I just want to say that this is the kind of work that ought to go on somewhere else. And while I understand there are differences about what we want to do with this, when we want to do it, you know, so can I get clarity about what's in front of us in terms of how the process is going to occur? Because making these changes here and I'm not really having an opportunity to think about them very hard, I don't think that's the best way to do it. So what's the plan?
As I understand, what the motion would do would be to adopt the procedures as we have it now, to take into consideration the amendments that have been proposed by Councilman Reece, and then have the city manager, the attorney, to take our document and look at what has been proposed by the gentleman who sent his email,
Mr. Jones.
and be prepared to speak to that at our work session. If there are going to be changes, not going to be changes. If we want to make changes, say we can. If we don't, we don't. But at least it gives us something in place now, going forward to Thursday, that if it's going to be changed, we can make changes, but we've got something in place now. And you might find out Thursday, you still don't have enough time to do what you want. But at least you have a document in place that can be revised when you get to the point where you think you're ready to make the revisions. That's what I understood.
So we're considering now then one of, as I understand it, are the people that have made the motion accepted the change that Charlie had recommended, which I believe was, which one was that?
Change in section 3 and a change that I don't have specific language for in section 4.
The people, I'm the person. Just me.
I thought you were talking about the council.
Oh,
When you said people, you're talking about here on the council? Yeah.
the motion. Oh, I
Yeah,
thought
I
you
was
were
just,
talking about the motion
so,
first.
okay, well then, I would like to understand better if we're going to amend this here, the change again for section 3, I'm not sure I understand it.
Happy to walk through it again. The second sentence in that section has a parenthetical in the middle of it that, if you look at the third line, it says to be false, comma, or a statement in general circulation without confirmation or certainty as to the facts, comma, about the city, et cetera. That parenthetical is what I'm proposing be removed. I don't know what a statement in general circulation is supposed to mean. I don't know how a member would seek confirmation or certainty. I don't know that certainty has much of a place in this kind of policy because it's difficult to define. And I think the provision without that parenthetical already has sufficient reminders to members that they are to be honest and accurate, that they should quickly correct mistakes or misstatements or factual errors. They should not post or share information known to be false, et cetera.
If I might add, as a reminder, the origin of that particular parenthetical was to define what a rumor was.
This was added after the committee considered this policy, is that correct?
It used to say rumor, and council
used
asked
to say
to
rumor.
define rumor. We looked up in the definition of rumor, and that's what the definition of rumor is.
To clarify, Mr. Manager, I don't believe I asked anyone to define rumor. I believe what I said was.
I didn't say you. I said
Okay,
council.
apologies, thank you.
I did. Okay. Wait, Councilman Short, you have the floor, are you still?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to vote against this motion
Okay.
because I think we have too much work to do on this still, and I'm not comfortable. I don't know if that language should be removed now or not. I don't feel comfortable making that decision here. So that's how I'll be voting.
That's all right. Recognize Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had an additional concern that I wanted to bring up, which was a First Amendment concern that was brought to our attention in the email that was previously mentioned regarding on page 3, under procedure for requesting and maintaining social media accounts for boards, committees, and commissions, under section 3, that outlines content-based restrictions on visitor-generated content on public pages. And what's been suggested is that government-created social media pages are protected by the First Amendment and that these content-based restrictions would be unconstitutional. I would much prefer the opportunity to look into that issue more before passing a policy that would potentially violate the First Amendment.
I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, can you slowly go through that again?
Sure. On page 3.
All right, page 3.
Section 3, there are content-based restrictions on content that would be allowed by visitors to city boards, committees, and commissions' social media accounts. It's been suggested that content-based restrictions on these accounts violate the First Amendment by imposing government regulation on speech.
So if somebody posted hate or profanity, we had to just leave it there?
That is what is being suggested, yes.
That's not what this says, but that's what somebody else is suggesting.
Yeah, that's what the email that we received is that these, I'll quote exactly, that the federal courts are consistently holding that social media pages of government bodies or public forums. Attempts to regulate speech in public forums must be content neutral and pass the time, place, and manner test established by the Supreme Court. Sections 3A, 3B, and 3E of the proposed policy, while admirable in what they are trying to accomplish, are anything but content neutral. They are singling out specific categories of content for prohibition. I believe that there are ways for us to regulate certain content on our pages that we would find that I believe there are ways to do that. I don't think that this language would pass constitutional scrutiny.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just briefly give you an illustrative example of what we're talking about here. The Durham Human Relations Commission has a Facebook page. It uses the city logo. It's called the Durham Human Relations Commission Facebook page or something similar. And I believe the concern is that under this guideline, the administrator of that particular Facebook page would be obligated to, could be obligated to remove certain content if it violated this policy. And that the concern raised by Mr. Jones, I believe was his email you were talking about, is that that would violate the First Amendment of the Constitution. So, just to give you some context of, I think.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the clarification. But again, if we're in agreement with Mr. Jones when he comes and explains it, we can change it. I'm not saying you can't change anything. I'm trying to get a document in place now for change. Right now, we have nothing. We have nothing. And that's all that I'm trying to move us towards, so we can have these other detailed discussions that you want. But right now, we don't have a document. We don't have anything. Nothing. And I guess the other piece is, I would hope that some of us who are sitting here would be mindful of what the intent is, and you wouldn't go astray to purposely do something that's going to take us off the reservation. But that's our own individual judgment on that. I hadn't finished. Had you finished, Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, I'll just add that
Okay.
I don't think that we should pass anything that violates the Constitution, even if it could be changed in the future.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
I recognize Councilman Martha.
In my ongoing attempt to find a solution that works for everybody at the moment, one suggestion that we could have, so we have a policy in place, but one that might not violate the Constitution's freedom of speech. This is simply for the time being, for the policy that we might pass tonight, eliminate that subsection 3. And then on Thursday, after due consideration, we can add back in part or all of it if we choose to.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm just trying to get something we can pass tonight to stead us over until we have this more in-depth discussion that is being proposed, after having spent so much time trying to get us to where we are today.
Mr. Mayor, could I offer an amendment, a friendly amendment utilizing Councilperson Moffitt's suggestion that we eliminate that portion and pass the rest of it as is?
You can.
Or whatever your motion, your suggestion was.
Where we were, I thought, is that Councilmember Reece has offered 2 changes. One, to delete a parenthetical section in, I believe it was subsection 3 of the top part, and to make an addition to subsection 5 in the top part so that members of council or whoever it covers would be prohibited against using the media to promote the election of any person, if I have that correct. And then now there's a third edit, which is delete this subsection 3 in the lower part on boards and commissions, and to direct the city attorney's office and city manager's office to review the email from the executive director of the NC Open Government Coalition for advice to council on Thursday.
That's the way I understand where we are now.
Okay.
So if that is a motion from Don, I'd like to second it.
I'll offer it as a substitute motion.
Yes.
Make it clear.
Substitute motion being heard, been first and second. Question on the substitute motion, Councilman Schewel.
Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say again, I have no idea if it's good or bad to take out number 3. I really have I'm not sure whether or not Charlie's first recommendation is a good one or not. I think this needs more work, and so I'll be voting accordingly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to call the question. Madam Clerk, do you have a question?
Please.
Manager, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Ms. Thompson said at the beginning, this is the council's policy, but obviously I think you are going to rely on staff to provide whatever feedback or background information we have, and you'll decide from there. I do think that there is some intent, positive intent, maybe not in the best of words, for the language in number 3, and would, if the council moves forward to vote tonight, would want to come back to you with some further clarification about that and not just take that off the table, if that's okay.
I would fully expect that.
And then the other point, since I just checked my email as of 8/16, I don't have that email that you all are talking about.
We'll make sure.
So if somebody could forward that to myself and Mr. Baker, and we'll make sure the clerk has it, and Ms. Thompson give us a chance to take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote, please? Close the vote.
It passes 4-3 with Mayor Bell voting no, Councilmember Davis
You didn't vote no, did you? Mary?
voting no, and Councilmember Reece voting no?
I meant to vote no.
You meant to vote?
I also meant to vote no.
Okay.
Re-vote.
Let's try that again.
Do you want us to reopen? Can you open again and vote again,
Okay,
please?
let me do it, hold on one second.
Is it open?
No, I need to do,
It's open?
no. It's
It's
open.
not open. Is it open? It's open now.
Yes.
Can you close it?
Are you ready?
So,
Ms. Johnson, you didn't vote? Okay,
Forget
it passes
let's
4-3.
Let's vote by hands. This-
And I voted no, my.
me
it's
too.
not working.
Mine's not working either end.
Okay.
So does she have the vote correct, 4-3, and those that voted no are Johnson, Schewel, and Reece.
That is correct.
Those voting for, Moffitt, Bell, McFadden, and Davis. Okay.
I like it when it gets that mixed up, Mr. Mayor. It just, it provides an additional layer of fun here at City Council.
All right. The next item is, we move to the public hearings. Item 18, zoning map change for Hendrick, Southpoint, overall Z17-00002.
Good evening, Jacob Wiggins with the Planning Department. Before I begin this evening, I'd like to note that all planning items before you this evening have been notified in accordance with applicable state and local laws. This is a request for a zoning map change submitted by Hendrick Automotive Group for an approximate a half-acre parcel located along Renaissance Drive. The site is currently zoned to commercial center with a development plan, and the applicant is requesting to change this designation to commercial general with a development plan. If approved, this area would be incorporated into the existing development plan, which governs the Hendrick Southpoint Auto Mall. That plan was approved in 2014 and permitted 300,000 square feet of floor area. The development plan associated with this request does not propose any additional development, and the commitments proffered as part of the original zoning would remain in place. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this request by a vote of 10-0 at their July 11th, 2017 hearing. There will be two motions to approve this item, the first being to adopt a consistency statement, and the second being a motion to adopt the required zoning map change. Staff finds that the request meets the applicable requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance and policies of the Comprehensive Plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing to be open. You've heard the staff report. I would ask, are there questions first by members of the council from the staff on this report? No questions. No one has signed up to speak, but let me ask again, is there anyone who wants to speak on this item, this being a public hearing? I'll let the record reflect that no one in the public asked to speak on this item. I will declare the public hearing to be closed. The matter is back before the council.
I'll move the adoption of the consistency statement, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote? Close the vote.
It passes 7-0.
I'll move the, adopt the ordinance, amending the Unified Development Ordinance to establish commercial general development plan zoning for the subject site.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. No questions. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote? Close the vote.
It passes 7-0.
Thank you. We'll move to item 19, consolidated item for Barbee Road Retail, A16-000011, Z16-000026.
Good evening, Jamie Sunyak with the Planning Department. Requests for comprehensive plan amendment and zone map change have been received from Eden's Land for two properties totaling 14+ acres located at the northwestern corner of Barbee Road and NC 54 Highway. The subject site is designated as office on the future land use map and is currently zoned RS20. The applicant proposes to change the future land use designation to commercial and the zoning to commercial general with a development plan for all uses permitted in the district with the noted exceptions. Key commitments as shown on the associated development plan: a maximum of 160,000 square feet of business for commercial uses, 3 site access points, parking and building envelope, tree preservation areas, project boundary buffers, future bicycle lanes, additional turning lanes on Barbee Road and on NC 54, a potential traffic signal at Barbee Road and site access 3 with pedestrian crosswalks, 230 feet of sidewalk along the south side of NC 54, connecting to sidewalks at the Meadows at Southpoint and other transportation-related commitments as shown as on the plan. The Planning Commission recommended approval of both the zoning map change and the planning amendment case by a vote of 9-3 at their July 11th, 2017 hearing. There will be two motions in front of you. First, a motion to adopt consistency statement as required by GS 160A-383, and the second would be a motion to receive comments on the Barbee Road retail amendment. Staff recommends approval of the plan amendment and zone map change, which are consistent with the Durham Comprehensive Plan and other adopted policies and ordinances. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you. There are questions. This is a public hearing of the staff this time. If not, I'd like to recognize two persons that have signed to speak on this item. One is a proponent, one is an opponent. Let me ask, is there anyone else who wants to speak? I have Jared Edens as the proponent. I have George A. Bryan as the opponent. Now, is there anyone else that wants to speak on this item, this being a public hearing? If not, I recognize Mr. Edens, and let's try 5 minutes initially.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Jared Edens with Edens Land. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Appreciate Jamie's summary of our project. As she stated, we're seeking to develop what I call a neighborhood retail center here at the intersection of Barbee and Highway 54. We think this is a very logical location for a retail center. If you look at its proximity to the nearest retail for that area, it's located about 1 mile. 1 mile to the east is the retail on Highway 55. There's a Food Line Center, several different retail out parcels. And if you go about 1 mile to the west is the nearest retail to the west, which is at Fayetteville and 54. There's a Kroger Center and other retail. Also in this area, and you are well aware from recent development, you've had a lot of development in this area of some density. We've had townhomes that are being built currently on the across Barbee Road from this property. You have townhomes being developed on the southern side of 54, Meadows at Southpoint project. We have a 54 station apartment complex just east of this parcel as well. So just at this intersection, you've got several hundred homes, townhomes, apartments, people that tend to walk a little more than people who live in single-family neighborhoods. So in order to try to take advantage of that and to try to make this not your typical grocery center or whatever it ends up being, we've added some pedestrian commitments. Subject to DOT approval, we've offered to install a pedestrian crosswalk, signalized crosswalk, both across Highway 54 and also across Barbee Road. What's happening out here is you've got a pretty extensive sidewalk system that's being developed as these projects in this corridor are being developed. So you'll have sidewalk along the north and south sides of 54 for a large extent through this area. And with these proffers, everything will be connected, pedestrian connectivity to the project with signalized access. With any project of any size, we completed a TIA traffic study. We were able to offset any impacts that we have with our development, but in a couple of cases, we're able to make things a little better than what they are existing. I want to point out two instances. The current intersection of Grandale and Barbee Road functions poorly. It's a level of service, a C in the morning and F in the evening. We're proposing a signal at this intersection that post-development will improve this level of service to, I believe, B and C. It's a great improvement over what it is now. We're also adding an additional through lane on Highway 54, which increases the capacity for a section along 54 and brings it down to about 89% capacity, which is a low number compared to what we normally see. Also, and we've vetted this recently with the planning director, I have 3 additional text commitments to offer up tonight. This is based on just feedback we've been getting and just some thinking we're doing on our side. And I will read these out loud. The first one being, at full build-out, the site will contain a minimum of 3 separate buildings. And the reason we say that is we're trying to make sure this is a nodal type commercial center and not a strip center. Nodal development specifically has multiple buildings. So in order to help ensure that it wouldn't be a strip center, we're making that commitment for 3 separate buildings minimum. Another commitment we want to make is the largest single tenant on the site will contain a floor area of between 15,000 and 60,000 square feet. The reason for that commitment is, again, on a typical strip center, you have shop spaces, you've seen them, generally the same size, not very attractive. What we're doing here, we're committing to saying that the largest tenant will at least have one user that is of large size, of at least 15,000 square feet, to ensure that it's not that strip center look. But also we're capping it at 60,000 square feet to ensure that there will not be a big box development on the property. We're trying to make sure this is a neighborhood center. And lastly, our third commitment we'd like to add tonight is that each individual use, parking area, and common area will be interconnected by a pedestrian network consisting of some combination of sidewalks, painted crosswalks, and walking paths. And again, that's geared towards pedestrian-friendly development and nodal development. As Jamie mentioned, we received a very favorable recommendation at Planning Commission 9-3. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Recognize Councilman Short.
Jared.
Jared, I have a question. Could you tell me your, I missed your third commitment that you made tonight.
Yeah, I'll save you reading the whole thing again. It's basically we're committing to provide interconnectivity, pedestrian interconnectivity internal to the site. So every parking area, every building, every public gathering space will have some sort of pedestrian connection, whether it be sidewalks, crosswalks along parking areas, or trails or whatnot. Everything will be connected internally.
Thank you.
Let me ask a comment. Well, go ahead, Reece, and then.
Mr. Mayor, Jared, could I ask you a quick question? You and I have discussed this before, but I want to see if you can make the best case that you can for us tonight that this intersection, this area needs another commercial node. It's not like this is a remote rural area. I live near here. There's lots of places to shop for lots of different things. I'll just tell you, I've been unconvinced that you've made the case that this is something that, is a good compared to the other uses. So help me out with that.
Okay, and thank you for the question. Again, the main reason for it to me is just the density at the node. When I say at the node, it's at the node. It's at the intersection. That's where the density is. So the commercial center and all the residential is within a stone's throw of each other. It's right there. The other thing I want to point out, when I look at the property, and I've looked at this for a few years now, I struggle finding a use that makes more sense than commercial. Townhomes and apartments are being built in abundance through here. I don't see a market for that anytime soon. We're talking about hundreds of units. Office, I don't think office is going to come here. I just don't think that's going to happen. You're not going to build single family up against Interstate 40. You're not going to zone for industrial near all these neighborhoods. It just seems to me that the highest and best use for this particular parcel is commercial, based on the other uses just not working.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Let me, I guess, follow up with the question. You indicated that you wanted to make sure we wouldn't have strip centers, and I appreciate that. But the way you said you're going to do that is you're going to say that you don't have a minimum of 3. Why didn't you say a maximum of 3? You said you wouldn't have any more, you'd build a minimum of 3 separate shops. So if you're really trying to make sure you don't have the strip centers that you have, why wouldn't you commit to building no more, making it a maximum rather than a minimum? Minimum means you do 3, but you could do anything anywhere larger than 3, so I didn't quite understand that.
Well, the purpose behind that, and the key phrase in that statement is separate buildings.
That's what I mean.
Not uses, not tenants. at least 3 separate buildings.
But you won't have any more than 3.
Possibly.
But you could have more than 3.
Oh, we could, yes, yes, sir.
But I'm saying, if you're really trying to make sure we don't have a multitude of shops that could turn into a strip center, it seems like the maximum number of 3 buildings you would have would be 3, not the minimum 3.
And see, when I think of a strip center, I think of a long monolithic building, shop. That's one building that has to me, an undesirable appearance. What we're trying to do here is have multiple buildings. Some will be at the front of the project, some will be at the rear of the project. We're trying to avoid minimizing the number of buildings on the property. And I think and that's just based on, when you look at Durham's definition of strip development versus nodal development, that's sort of where that comes from, is trying to achieve that nodal development definition.
Well, I'm still having a problem with separate buildings, and you're going to have at least 3 separate buildings, but you could have 10 or 15 separate buildings. Versus if
I mean, in theory, but it is a 14-acre site, and in theory, yes.
Okay, well, I have some more questions about the site, but I'll wait till I hear from Mr. Bryan. Mr. Bryan, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Bell and council members. My name is George Bryan, and I reside at 6505 Hunters Lane in Durham. I want to emphasize that I'm speaking tonight as a private citizen, not as a member of the Planning Commission. Quite frankly, I do not see the need for this proposed commercial development in view of the extensive commercial areas, including Southpoint Mall, only a few miles away from this site. However, my purpose tonight is to express my concerns about transportation infrastructure. Because I have already provided you a memo describing these concerns, I'll keep my remarks brief. The NC 54 Barbee Road intersection is the primary intersection impacted by the proposed project. There is no northbound left turn signal at this intersection, and the absence of one often causes long delays. There have already been a number of near collisions because of this, and traffic from the proposed project and other nearby projects presently under construction will only make matters worse. I believe that a northbound left turn signal is clearly needed and that it should be provided as part of this project if council is inclined to approve it. And just to ad lib briefly, if you go north on Barbee Road, the next traffic light you come to is Barbee Road and Woodcroft Parkway, and there is a left turn signal northbound on Barbee Road at Woodcroft Parkway, and I can't see the rationale for having one at Woodcroft and Barbee Road and not one at 54 and Barbee Road. The proposed project has frontage along the segment of NC 54 that runs from Fayetteville Road to Barbee Road. Due to the required transportation infrastructure improvements, this segment of NC 54 will operate at 89% of LOSD capacity according to the staff report. However, the proposed project will also impact the adjacent segment of NC 54 from Barbee Road to Revere Road. I have been advised by transportation staff that this segment of NC 54 will operate at over 110% LOSD capacity if this project moves forward. NC 54 is a major highway in southern Durham. To have one segment of this highway operating at 89% capacity and an adjacent segment operating at over 110% capacity makes no sense to me. I see it as a recipe for disaster. I believe that the roadway capacity on the Barbee Road to Revere Road segment of NC 54 must be improved if council is inclined to approve this request. Finally, there is a similar request tracking a cycle behind this one for the parcel to the west of this proposed site. The site to the west and this site share a common boundary, and I think that there should be cross-access between these commercial projects. Cross-access would create a single commercial node out of two separate projects, and would facilitate a safer movement of traffic between the two projects and on the adjacent roadways. Thus, I encourage council to encourage the two applicants to work together to provide cross-access. Thank you for your consideration of these concerns. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'd also like to reserve any remaining time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, anyone else that wants to speak on this item? We've had proponents and opponents. No, I'm not going to close the public hearing yet. I do have some questions that I'd like to ask Mr. Evans, if you don't mind. I guess I will start with the first question that Councilman Reece asked you. I'm still not convinced that you need a commercial site at this location. I mean, obviously I'm personal because I live near there and I understand the traffic issues, I understand what's being built. I have a very good appreciation of what's going on. This other concern that I have is what really is going into this site as commercial. What are we talking about putting in there? The three buildings, three separate buildings.
Okay, well, the answer is that that's unknown at this time. That's an honest answer, because what we've done is we've applied for a certain square footage of development, and we have a certain amount of traffic that's assigned to that square footage. When we go to the site plan stage, we'll know better then, obviously, what our uses are going to be. I know staff will compare that to the traffic study, make sure there's no traffic extra impacts over what's there now. This site, logically to me would be a grocery center, is a logical use for the property, but that's not a guarantee by any means. You could have, obviously there's a lot of uses allowed in the general commercial district, but I don't have a definite end user at this point.
Well, that's one of the concerns that bothers me, because we don't know what will go there. I've heard mention about storage complexes, and I can tell you I would not be supportive of that. We just went through this, I guess about a year ago, with a project on the street where they wanted to put apartments and put storage units, and the council turned it down. They came back with a better proposal, which is all townhomes. My concern about storage units is, one, I think that we've come to the point where we can be a lot more selective in terms of what goes into our commercial developments. If I look at this site, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 storage units with all within a 2-mile radius. And the other problem that I have with that is the appearance. People build storage units different ways, and I know we can't regulate ugliness, I understand that. But I would not want to approve this thinking that we're going to have storage units on the site. I just think it goes against everything that we've talked about and how this area needs to develop. And as I said, we had this long discussion about a year ago with someone proposing to put storage units in there. So I would hope that that would not be one of the units that you would talk about putting in on the site.
And, I mean, that could be a proffer this evening if necessary.
It would help me.
Yes, sir.
It would help me in trying to move to the next phase of where we are, especially when I just read Mr. Bryan's report, which indicated, I guess, the property is tracking is talking about a storage unit. It doesn't help the situation at all. I mean, if you just look at that area in terms of how it's developing, we've got Southpoint Mall less than 2 miles away. You got 54, 55 shopping. That's a little bit more than a mile away. And I don't see this area yearning for commercial. Of course, it's not my money that's going to invest in it. I mean, people are going to make that decision, the ones going to put the money there. But besides that, I'm concerned about the appearance. And traffic is definitely another issue. I hope we're going to be able to address some of the questions that Mr. Bryan has raised. Maybe you want to speak to him yourself relative to proposals that he suggested.
Yeah, and I wasn't involved in his conversations with Transportation Department, but I mean, the only thing I would note is in the current staff report, It looks like the current volume on 54 is about 17,000 cars a day with a capacity of, I believe it's 14,200. I calculate that currently it's probably around 120% is what I calculate. I don't know what exact section that's referring to in the staff report. 110% is obviously an improvement over that, but I can't speak to exactly what Bill and George talked about.
Well, can someone on the staff speak to that, please?
Yes, Bill Judge with Transportation. Mr. Edens is correct. The existing capacity, we estimated at around 14,200 for a 2-lane roadway without a turn lane. The post capacity calculation that we did is the proposed site development as well as all the other approved developments with the proposed roadway improvements. So that increases the capacity of the roadway, which then brings the segment immediately adjacent back under the level of service D capacity. But as Mr. Bryan indicated, that's only the segment that they're widening. The segment from 54 from Barbee to Revere Road would still be over capacity.
And the comment that he raised about a left turn lane on Barbee Road at 54, whereas if you proceeded on Barbee Road towards Woodcroft, there's a left turn lane which allows traffic to, and I go that way every day, so I know the value of having a left turn lane and not get hung up because you got to wait for people to turn.
Yes, we looked at that concern as well. I think his concern was more about a exclusive left turn phase signal to turn on the 54.
Mm-hmm.
Those are determined based on traffic volume needs, because every time you add a turn phase, it does increase delay at the intersection as you serve those phases. Based on the projected volumes, it's not warranted at this time, so that's why it was not required.
Well, when you say it's not warranted at this time, you know the developments that are on board back further on 54. I mean, you got one big development that's going on back there that's going to be generating more traffic coming up 54, coming up Barbee Road to get to 54. In addition, you still got the developments along 54 that people can come out of their development onto 54, onto Barbee Road to try to move forward also. So I'm not sure what you're saying based on what's happening now. What are you taking into consideration what's going to occur, the developments that are already on?
We did. When we made that estimation or determination, we looked at the projected traffic volumes with all the proposed developments in the area. A lot of that traffic that's being developed on the south side, it does have direct access to 54, so some of that is coming north and turning directly on 54, and other traffic perhaps turning left on the Barbee Road as well over to Massey Chapel, Herndon to get to Fayetteville. So not all of it's coming through the NC 54 Barbee intersection.
I would tend to disagree with that. I live it every morning. Very few people try to get to 54 other than coming up Barbee Road and turning left or right to go in that direction.
Well, I will say we continue to monitor intersections on a yearly basis, and with complaints from citizens. Adding a turn phase is not a tremendously difficult or expensive proposition to do. So if it's warranted at some point in the future, we can work with the state and get that installed.
So you're telling me you can't install it now?
The state would not likely approve it based on the projected traffic volumes currently.
The profit that you made concerning the storage complexes, is that something you're committing?
Yes, sir. We will add that as a list of disallowed uses for the property. And for what it's worth, Mr. Mayor, I did talk with George beforehand. We were talking about the left turn signal issue at 54, and that is something we have no problem proffering to add that additional phase as well. But again, it would be subject to DOT approval since they issue the permit. But if they'll approve it, we will add that as well.
Did you guys get that?
Mr. Mayor, Pat Young with Planning Department. Yes, we can accept that proper, but what I heard Mr. Eden say is that it's, as of course he just mentioned, as you're aware, it's subject to DOT approval.
Are there other questions or comments?
I'd like to ask, you did mention,
Councilman Davis.
it's okay. You did mention that one possible use, and you can't guarantee that that would be the case, would be there could be a grocery store right there at that location. And that would, as I see it, I understand all the concerns about traffic, but with all of the developments that are walkable to that grocery store, that would perhaps be a very good use for that facility, although you can't guarantee that that would be the case. But if that ends up being a good place for a grocery store, as I think it would be, there would be a favorable view of it from my standpoint.
Recognize Councilman Moffitt.
Yes, sir. So I've got several things I have a couple questions for staff. One of the things I want to talk about, and you might be the right person, it might be Mr. Young, I'm not sure. But I do think that the question is not if the property should be developed in time, but how. I don't see it as single-family residential. And that would seem, currently, if the future land use map calls for it to be what?
Office institution.
To be office, right?
Office, correct.
Right. And my understanding is that we have a lot of properties across the city that have a future land use of office designation. And could you talk a little bit about the perceived demand and the amount of land that we have that corresponds to that?
Yes, Councilmember Moffitt, Pat Young again with the Planning Department. We did do an internal analysis about 2 years ago based on market data we had at that time. And of course, the demand for office market has increased slightly during that time period. But as part of our review, as I think you're aware, the future land use map designation of office was used across the community to try to create a buffer between lower intensity and density residential uses and higher intensity uses such as commercial and industrial. And so there is a significant overallocation in our judgment for at least a 30-year time period of the office land use. That's not to say it's not possible that an office would choose to locate at this location in the future, but on a community-wide basis, there's at least 100% higher office designation than there is a perceivable demand.
And of course, right now it's zoned for single-family residential.
That's correct.
So if someone were to seek an office zoning, change to office zoning designation and receive that, they could build multifamily there. Is that right?
That's
so without
correct.
a land use, without a change to the future land use map, they could get a rezoning and do multifamily residential.
That's correct. Multifamily residential is a use that's consistent with the office land use designation, office future land use map designation.
Okay. So I have a question for Mr. Judge. And so that we have a proposal in front of us, we have concerns about traffic. If someone were to do multifamily here, and I'm asking, if someone were to do multifamily here, the impacts, traffic impacts on the neighboring roads versus commercial, would they be similar, higher, lower?
It would ultimately probably depend on the density and total number of units, but in general, the retail is more intense from a traffic standpoint than residential, even multifamily.
Okay, great, thank you. And I did want to ask, maybe this question, Mr. Young, the connectivity is usually something that the UDO is insistent on, the Unified Development Ordinance. I know there have been times when we've had applicants who've said, we don't want to build this connection, and the answer has been it's required in the UDO. Why is there no connectivity required to the parcel to the west? Mr. Bryan is suggesting that there should be connectivity, which implies it's not required.
Yeah, I'll let Mr. Judge speak to that. He's the one who looked at the cross-access connection to that parcel. I will mention, though, and I'm not sure if this was directly the point of your question, but there is required sidewalk connection from the property to the east side of Barbee, north and east side, the townhouse project. We'll have to complete that to the intersection with the crosswalk. And then the property to the south, the Meadows at Southpoint project, will also have to. There is, of course, an existing gas station, as probably everyone's aware, on the southwest corner of Barbee and 54. And unless there's significant improvements at that location, which are actually being proposed and will come before you soon, that would be a final segment of sidewalk. So the sidewalk connectivity to the site from off-site would be required, and I did want to put that on the record. I'll let Mr. Judge talk about the cross-access to the adjacent site to the west.
Yes. Those connectivity requirements typically only apply when public or private streets are proposed. So here, this is all internal, but certainly it's something that our department would support if the two developers were agreeable to providing a cross-access between the two sites.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Edens. That's my first question then. If the developer of the parcel that we're talking about, which is to the west, is amenable to cross-connection, is there any reason why that would be a not beneficial or useful or good for your project?
No, we'd be very much in favor of it.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? But I'm wondering if you're actually then willing to proffer a cross-connection to that parcel if the developer of that parcel is willing to accept that.
Yes, I'm not sure the exact wording, but that's.
Did I get close to something that?
Subject to location.
Yeah, we would, Pat Young again with the Planning Department, we would need some location, language that pertain directly to the timing and the conditionality in terms of consent by the adjacent property owner, because they would have to participate in the cross-access. So I would recommend that it be accepted contingent on the agreement of the adjacent property owner.
Oh, and then you said, and what you made me think is contingent on their agreement within, say, 6 months or a year or something, right?
Well, either a time certain or prior to, typically what we do is prior to a specified regulatory hurdle such as site plan approval, certificate of occupancy. And again, that would be, it's a voluntary proffer, so I just am looking to the applicant to give the parameters there. But
Yeah, we're in agreement with that, and I would think that, I don't know if first final plat would be a good trigger. That's generally what we use, but that would be fine with us.
How soon does that happen?
So it's usually one of the first items, although I'm not 100% sure there's going to be a plat required for this unless there's subdivision. That's likely, but I would guess I would ask that it be maybe an alternative first certificate of occupancy.
That would be fine, sure.
The second thing I was thinking about the 3 buildings, right? And at first I thought, oh, this is, I started thinking about, I think the project is called 751 West or something. It's at the end of Renaissance Parkway, Bonefish Grill. I think Bonefish Grill is in there. And there's 3 or 4 different buildings, different uses, but different buildings. And, but then I got to visualizing, as I was sitting up here visualizing shopping centers, and another way to get to 3 buildings is a standard, typical strip center with 2 out parcels, 2 fast food restaurants, for example. And it seemed like the way around that would be if no building contained more than a percentage of the overall square footage of the shopping center, right? So that no building I mean, the way that you described it, the way that I thought you were thinking about it was the three relatively equivalent, or more, relatively equivalent buildings. And then therefore, some percentage of, if none of them dominated significantly, then you would be what I thought you were describing.
And I understand what you're saying. I was actually thinking in my head
Right.
what a proper percentage would be, in lieu of the square footage we have. Because it was part of the meaning for committing to the larger structure is to not have, that ensures that you don't have a strip center with two out parcels, because your strip center has to have at least one 15,000 unit tenant in there, so it wouldn't be, as bad. Do you have a percentage in mind? I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, this would be up to you. I was doing the same thing earlier. I was sitting here thinking, well, you got a tenant who might be as big as 60,000 feet, so you definitely want to have a building that could house them, right?
Yeah.
And, if you got to 50% for any particular building, then that would allow your 60,000 foot tenant 20,000 square feet extra space, without, but I mean, I was just doing the same thing you're doing now, thinking about numbers.
Okay. I mean, I'm open to it, to writing it that way in lieu of the way we have it. I mean, I think 50% is reasonable.
So what I'm hearing you say is, and what you said before was at least 3 separate buildings, and now you're adding to that no particular building, no particular tenant will be larger than 60,000 feet, 15 to 60,000, what you said, and no particular building is going to be larger than 50% of the entire project.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's all the issues that I was thinking about. Thank you. I do want to say that when we talk about what kind of use, what kind of development that this property might have, I always think about what might happen there, what are the different things that might happen, and some things are unknown and some things are. And what we do know is that this particular applicant with this particular project is proffering a significant number of improvements to the road system there. And then the question becomes, with all of the proffers that they're making, pedestrian connectivity within the site, to the exterior of the site, sidewalks, traffic improvements, the things that we've talked about in terms of massing of the buildings, whether or not that is compelling enough to make this project something worth consideration. In my opinion, it does. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Are there other questions or comments? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. Pardon me, Councilman Shaw.
No, it can be after you close the public hearing, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
I closed the public hearing. You have questions?
Well, I'm interested, Mr. Mayor, do you have further comments or questions? You live down here, and I'm interested further in your thoughts on this. And
Well, I think the points that I was trying to speak to relative to traffic are still important. What goes into that site, if he's excluding storage units, it makes it a lot more compelling for me to be willing to accept that. Don has made comments about the cross connections. Of course, we've got something coming behind that, and we have to deal with that when it comes. But beyond that, I'm as comfortable as I can get. I prefer to see it if it wasn't done, but that's another issue. I think everybody looked at that as a piece of property that was going to be developed, but it was office institutional, I think, that people were looking at, not another general commercial that's being proposed here. Well, they're my comments and thoughts. Recommend Councilman.
I did have one more question for staff, Mr. Judge. And this had to do with the capacity of Barbee Road, up and down Barbee Road, number of projects, the projections that you've made. One of the comments that Mr. Bryan made was that if this project is built, then there's a section of Barbee Road that'll be over 110% of capacity. But my question was, given all of the other projects that are proposed along Barbee Road, what how does that change if this is multifamily? In other words, the 110% capacity, would we lay that at the blame of that on this project, or is it on all the projects combined, or what, can you give us your insights?
Councilman Moffett, please excuse me for interrupting, but the comment I made was that the section of NC 54 from Barbee Road to Revere Road would be over 110%.
Did I say Barbee Road?
You said Barbie.
I'm sorry, thank you. No, NC 54. My question, though, is what are the impacts on the road system there, including NC 54, specifically NC 54, would be because of this project or a combination of all the development there? Like,
Yes, Bill Judge with Transportation. It's a combination of existing traffic volumes and the other proposed developments, as well as the proposed site traffic from this development. I mean, this section of NC 54 is part of an NCDOT TIP project for widening for additional through lanes from NC 55 all the way to basically the Durham, well, into Chapel Hill. This particular segment's not funded at this time, but so yeah, there is a long-range need for capacity just for background growth in the area. So it's not solely this development, but there is development pressure in the corridor right now.
is this, I can't remember, is this in spot 5.0?
It will be reprioritized, I guess, in spot 5.0. It's a carryover project automatically because parts are already funded in spot 4.
Okay. So. The spot system is a rating system for prioritizing projects for state funding. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask Mr. Judge a question? There's been a lot of discussion tonight about the intersection of 54 and Barbee. Is there any projection about any light or anything else that would come at the corner of Grandale and Barbee?
Yes, one of the proffers and requirements from this traffic impact study was to install a signal there if it met traffic signal warrants at the time of development.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the public hearing has been closed. No other comments? Entertain a motion on the item.
Move the consistency statement.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote? Close the vote.
It passes 6-1 with Council. Mayor Bell, it passes 6-1 with Councilmember Reece voting no.
Yes, ma'am.
Entertain
Move the item
Second.
With the proffers.
with the proffers. Yes, sir.
She's moving the what now?
Move the item with the proffers.
Madam Clerk, will you open the vote? Open the vote. Close the vote.
It passes 6-1 with Councilmember Reece voting no.
Move to the next item, which is item 22. Zoning map change for 117 Goodwin.
Thank you. Jacob Wiggins with the Planning Department. A request has been received to rezone approximately 1.5 acre portion of a property located at 117 Goodwin Road. The site is currently split zoned residential suburban 20 and residential rural. This request has been submitted by Mr. Brad Grindstead, and if approved, he is proposing the RR zoning designation for the entire site. There was no development plan that was submitted with part of this request. The applicant has indicated a desire to perhaps construct a veterinary clinic at the site if this request is approved. That use is not allowed in the RH20 district, but the RR district. There are two motions that are required for this item. The first motion being a consistency statement, and the second motion being a request to adopt the zoning map change ordinance. Staff finds that the request to change the designation from RH20 to RR to meet the applicable requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance and the policies of the comprehensive plan. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have at this time.
Okay, again, it's a public hearing. The public hearing is open. Are there questions by members of the council? If not, we have three people that have signed to speak on the site. Pardon me. Three people that signed to speak on this item. One is a proponent, two are opponents. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? I have for Brad Grimstead as a proponent. I have Benny Torin, and Vera Hughes as opponents. Now, is there anyone else who wants to speak on this item? If not, we'll start with Mr. Grimstead. You have 5 minutes. Make it 6 minutes. I'll give each opponent 3 minutes. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, my name is Brad Grinstead. I live at 1018 Lakeview Road, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come and talk to you today about this project that we have. As Mr. Wiggins indicated, we do intend to make the 117 Goodwin Road the future home of the new Eno Animal Hospital. Eno Animal Hospital has been serving the North Durham area for over 20 years now, in the building that it's in for that entire time. And that building is very quickly becoming older than what we can support and have the quality of care that we like to have at Eno Animal Hospital. When my wife, Dr. Sabrina Grinstead, purchased Eno Animal Hospital and took over the operations of it 6 years ago, the facility was serving the North Durham community. We had a lot of really good clients and good family members that came into the hospital and wanted us to treat them like they were our family. And we did that, and we've done it to the point where in that 6 years' time, we've almost doubled the number of clients that we see on a weekly basis. And we're very quickly outgrowing that space that we're currently in. So we wanted something that could stay in the North Durham community where our roots are, and the Goodwin Road parcel was the perfect fit for us. It had the right size, it had the intersection, and more importantly than anything else, it kept us in that North Durham area so that our people that are coming to see us on a regular basis don't have to go out of their way or go to another area, and we can continue to serve the community. And so what we're proposing to do, and we're sole owners of the property, my wife and I, and what we're proposing to do is to put a new state-of-the-art animal hospital in that location. With all the state-of-the-art, not only on the inside, but also on the outside. That includes state-of-the-art soundproofing for those that are concerned, as you probably would be with barking dogs or something during business hours and after hours as well. Double-layer fencing to protect both the animals and the residents around them, and landscaping and external appearance that's consistent with a rural suburban neighborhood, not glass and chrome, but keeping the appearance similar to the housing that is in the area around there. In addition to that, with the site drawings that we're working out with engineers right now, have us keeping all of the existing foliage of the trees that are on the boundaries of the lot in place, and keep wherever we don't have the building and the parking lots and the facilities, leaving that vegetation up, just cleaning out the underbrush and keeping it nice, providing both a visual as well as an audio break to the neighbors that are around us. So trying to keep, again, comfortable with our neighbors. So basically then what we're looking at is a place to take a existing thriving business that's serving the North Durham community and has been for 2 decades now, and move it to a new location. And that new location is still in the same neighborhood, if you will, of the existing clinic, and give us the opportunity to continue serving North Durham for many years to come. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Happy to entertain any questions that you guys may have.
Are there any questions this time? Recognize Councilman Short.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have, so since I've been on the council, there has been one recurring situation where there have been a lot of complaints about noise, barking dogs, and so forth from not your facility, but another animal hospital or veterinary facility. I'm not sure the exact appropriate term. So, and I understand that you're not having any outdoor boarding facilities, is my understanding.
That's correct.
But-
There will be
but
no outdoor kennels.
Could you speak to, I'm concerned about the effect of the noise from your facility on the nearby residents. So can you speak to that?
I absolutely can. So if you come out to our facility right now, which as I said actually it's about a 30-year-old building, and you stand in the parking lot at a reasonable distance away where our neighbors would be in the new facility, you will not hear barking dogs, or if you do, it's very quiet. The facility, the way that we have the animals, the way that we have a fear-free environment in the clinic minimizes the amount of barking that is going on in general, and that's with an old construction, okay, without the soundproofing that goes into a modern animal hospital and veterinary clinic. Typically, when you have noise complaints from a veterinary clinic, it comes from one of two things. One is outdoor kennels, which we are absolutely not going to have. It's not allowed by the code. We wouldn't do it anyway. And the second reason is improperly soundproofed and baffled holding areas or pens or kennels inside. Again, the construction that we're planning right now has modern soundproofing, and it really isn't going to be a major issue. Secondly, or I guess thirdly, our office hours that we currently have are 8 to 6, 8 to 8 on our late night, no Sunday hours, morning hours only on Saturday. The animals get riled up when people are moving in and out, lights are flashing on and off. At night, when it's calm, the animals aren't barking. And that's just generally what we've had. That's the way we've tried to plan everything. And again, with the fear-free practices that we have going on in the clinic and the other policies and procedures that we have in place to minimize both animal noise inside, animal noise outside, as well as the potential for a lost animal, given the double fencing system that we're going to be using, the policies and procedures are in place to prevent that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to recognize opponents, Bennett Torrin and Jeremy Hughes. Ms. Hughes wants to go first? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hughes, you just state your name and address again, please, and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Vera Hughes, and my property adjoins 117 Goodwin Road. There's a lot of seniors living there, and he's requesting a zone change, and we're afraid that if they change the zoning, that our taxes will be so high that we will have to relocate. We have lived there all of our lives. It's nothing but a lot of seniors there. We are a big family. We help each other. And, you know, we would hate mighty bad if the taxes would consume our houses and homes, because all of us are on fixed income. And when they fix it, they fix it. So that's just the way it is. And, you know, we're just afraid. And then he's proposing to put this animal hospital by our church. And, you know, I'm concerned that for environmental hazard, all the noise, you know, and the rest home, nursing home is right across the road. Northern High School is right across the highway. And, you know, I feel like that this is just gonna be a lot of trouble and a lot of noise, and with all of the traffic and stuff, that we're just gonna get bogged down. And so we're asking you to vote no, please, to let the zone change come about. The crime rate so far is very, very low. And if people start bringing in businesses, we feel that the crime rate is gonna go high. The seniors are not afraid to go out at night. We're not afraid to come out of our house or anything because nobody bothers you. We can put things down. You don't worry about anybody coming, bothering your stuff. We don't bother each other's stuff because we know everybody. And like I say, we live happily together. And if this is broken up, God only knows what will happen to us. And we are too old to go out and look for new places to live now. At my age, I don't even want to think that. So would you please take this in consideration? I inherited it from my great-great-grandfather, and I would hate mighty bad to have to give it up. So would you please think about this and please consider it when you start to vote? Thank you.
Could I ask the staff to put item 3 up on the, this is the aerial view. I'm trying to see where Miss Hughes' house is relative to.
On Northern Way? Do you live on Northern Way?
Well, her address is on Goodwin Road. That's why I was trying to figure out which house. She said her address was 134 Goodwin Road. Here's Goodwin. I'm trying to figure out where. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out where the house is.
What's her address?
134.
See, are you all able to see this map on your screen?
Yes, sir, that one. Yeah.
Oh, there we go, yeah. Yeah, so Northern Way Court, if you see my cursor, it's just to the east of the property. So I believe Ms. Hughes, you're either at the corner.
I'm trying to find her house. Where's her house?
134 Goodwin Road?
On Goodwin Road.
It looks like the house that's in that
Yeah.
lot that's like this and then gets bigger. It's in the tiny part there. That, I think, I looked it up on Google. I think that's the house. Right there. The long driveway out to Goodwin, ma'am.
This one here? Yeah, if you can see my cursor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Google suggests that's.
Being in.
It's right behind that property.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, if I might just add a point of information. I just wanted to confirm that the ordinance would prohibit any outdoor runs or kennels or storage of animals. It requires a 300-foot separation between an outdoor run and residential, and because the small size of this lot, under 2 acres, they are not able to have any outdoor storage of animals. So that is going to be enforced by the ordinance.
Okay, recognize Mrs. Doran.
Mr. Mayor and council members, Pastor Torian, Great Orange Grove Baptist Church. I've been pastoring there for the past 22 years. And as I address you this afternoon, we're talking about the zoning change that is coming up and the change from one number to another. And as you know, if you've been in that area, that there is about 4 or 5 churches in the general area. There's a school and a rest home. I think that we have to be mindful that we don't want to change the template. Now, right beside the church, there are some residences on the back side, which is a little bit more expensive, I gather. But also we have a fair amount of senior citizens in that area. We hadn't talked, but she got my notes right here on my page. And we're concerned that if there is a change, how will it affect the seniors as it relates to the tax structure? We recognize that there is going to be things that move forward and won't stay the same. But we know those things that have been there for years, and certainly we had, it's been quiet in that area. I don't like to talk about what's going in there, but I do want to talk about the tax structure And we know that people say, well, the taxes won't go up, but we know in Durham, when we put new, I would say, commercial things in an area, that the taxes do escalate. I know that where the old warehouse used to be over in East Durham, they said the taxes wouldn't go up, and now the people can't hardly stay in their houses because of the increase in taxes. We must realize that some of these seniors have been in this area, and while they were working, they could pay the taxes. But when they retire, they're on fixed income, and anything that escalates the taxes certainly would hurt them just a little bit, I believe. We had a meeting at the church on yesterday afternoon, and we discussed some things about this, what was going on. And to a person, most of them, was against this, the dog hospital coming in. Now, there are some other hospitals in that area, well, not really in the area, but they're on Guest Road. There's one which is about 9 or 10 minutes away. And then there's another that I'm familiar with, it's on Carver Street, which is a little bit farther away. The question is, do we need this in this area at this time? I know people want to make money. I have no problem with that. I've been a businessman myself. But we ought to also, is my time up?
Yes, sir.
Is that what that means?
Yes, sir.
Can I have just a couple more minutes?
No, sir.
Well, I just want to say, I strongly oppose this thing, what it is. Now, y'all have given other people 5 minutes, don't give me but 2?
No, sir.
Now, that's the way y'all do it, ain't it?
Gave you 3, Reverend Torrin, gave the other person 3, and gave the opponent 6. You're quite welcome. You got your point across. You said you wanted to oppose it. I did. All right, are there other persons that want to speak on this item? If there's no further discussion on the item, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring the matter back before the council.
I have a question.
Recognize the Mayor Pro Tem.
Who can help allay my neighbor's fears about her taxes increasing? I'm about a mile away from you, I think, mile and a half.
Sure. Jacob Wiggins with the Planning Department. I mean, I can point out that this request is to maintain the residential zoning of the property. It's kind of a quirk in the ordinance. The vet clinic is only allowed in the least intense zoning district, so the residential zoning would not change, nor would the future land use map change as part of this request, which designates this area as well as the surrounding properties for residential use.
Recognize Councilman Shule.
Just to be clear then, Jacob, let me understand if I heard you right. Will you explain to the people here who live nearby again, how will this, what the zoning of the surrounding property of this is, and how that will or will not change with this?
Sure. So this particular property, it's got 2 residential zoning districts. It's kind of a leftover planning theory from the 70s and 80s where there was more dense residential development located along the street being Roxborough Road. So there's slightly higher residential zoning about 100 feet off the edge of the road. And then it's residential rural, which is the surrounding properties. So the applicant in this case is requesting to change that designation to match the surrounding residential rural. It just so happens in this case, their intended use, which is a veterinary clinic, our ordinance only allows that use in that residential rural district. Again, there's no development plan associated with this, so there's no guarantee that a veterinary clinic will end up at the subject site. It could still be used for residential purposes either way.
Thank you. So just want to say to the neighbors, I understand your concern about your taxes, and it is true that we have had many times in Durham recently where commercial development has come in, and there's more commercial developments followed, and the houses nearby, the taxes have risen. But in this case, this is not changing this zoning to commercial, remain residential zoning, and your zoning you are surrounded by residential zoning, and there's no request to change that. So I think in this case, I would just say that it's not a, while I understand, how you're thinking about it, it doesn't seem to me that this will be something that will influence your taxes and drive them up. So anyway. So.
You have comments?
Well, I wanted to talk for a moment about the having a veterinary clinic relatively close to residential. So one of the things that the applicant said, the applicant said, was that if you were to go to his current clinic, you would be able to get a sense of how little or how much disruptive it is to have the clinic in that environment. And I was wondering if anybody had done that. I know you guys are really interested. You're here tonight. You've sat through a long meeting. And there's a clinic, I keep thinking about, there's a clinic on Broad Street called Willow Oak Vets. And it's cheek to jowl with residential. It backs up to very close, not big lots like I'm seeing on the map here. Of small lots, backs up to residential. It's adjacent to other properties. And I'm fairly familiar with it. And it's, other than having the sign out front, you wouldn't actually know what they were, what they do. And I was wondering if any of you had visited their clinic or, okay. I will tell you that from my experience with that particular clinic I was talking about, that's really set close in, and as far as I know, there had been no complaints about it whatsoever. That change is hard. Change is hard. Nobody likes change, and it's I believe and I hope that if this is approved, that after it's built, you'll be able to look back and think, boy, this happens to me sometimes. Look back and think, I'm not really sure what I was concerned about. Of all the particular uses I can imagine in your neighborhood, it's hard to imagine one that would be less, daytime hours and no outside kennels. It's just, I don't think it's going to be, I hope. I don't know how to reassure you other than to say I don't think it'll be as bad as you're thinking it might be.
Okay. Recognize.
Someone else wanted to speak.
My name is Teresa McGee, and I attend the church at 5524 North Roxbury Road. My question to you all is, why are there two zonings, and which one is on Roxbury Road? And why is it necessary, questions after questions, why is it necessary to change the zones to the RR?
Jacob Wiggins with the Planning Department. So the two zoning districts, the RS-20 is the roughly half of the parcel that's closest to the street.
Okay.
And it's basically...
Good. Maybe you ought to put the diagram back up so she can all see.
Yeah, so on this map, the RS-20, as you can see, is the brighter yellow that kind of parallels Roxbury Street to the north. For whatever reason, our planning predecessors thought at once upon a time that it was smart to have the higher intensity residential zoning closer to the street along major road corridors such as Roxbury. In this case, fundamentally, our ordinance doesn't distinguish between the two very much, but there is one key distinction which has precipitated this request, and that's the veterinary clinic is only allowed in the RR. So basically the tan color, which you see the other properties around this are colored, that district only permits the veterinary clinic. So that bright yellow portion, the applicant cannot use this property as a veterinary clinic in that area. It's prohibited by the ordinance.
So, Mr. Wiggins, would you say this is a down zoning in that regard?
Yes, sir, Mr. Bonfeld, I would say that's correct. The residential rural is probably our least intense, it's not probably, it is our least intense zoning district in that regard.
That was my question. I just didn't understand why it needed to be changed and what is so important about changing it, downgrading it.
Sure. Why it needs to be changed, my response would be that the applicant has requested that so that they could use the property for their intended purpose. Because otherwise, it could be used as residential as it is now. In order to use it for the vet clinic, it would have to go through this change.
Are there any other non-residential uses that the rural residential would permit?
It's very limited. Most of those would require a minor special use permit.
Right.
Yeah, such as the church across the street, if they wanted to expand or something like that, they would also have to go through a process to ensure that there's no negative impact on the adjacent residential neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Recognize Councilman Shule.
Yeah, this is slightly off topic, but just a concern that's been raised by the residents that I just wanted to make sure that they were aware of the potential property tax relief offered by the county for seniors of a certain income. So if you all are not aware of that, you should inquire at the county tax office for the potential for tax relief.
Okay, are there other discussions? I'm going to be voting no on this. It's going to pass. I'm voting no, not because I think it's going to hurt you. I'm voting no because you think it's going to hurt you. And I understand the demographics, the population is there. I can understand the concerns that you have. I don't think you will see a tax increase because of this, but there's no guarantee that you won't. But by the same token, I understand the concerns that you have, and as a result of that, I'll be voting no for this item. Having said that, I entertain a motion on the item.
I'll move the consistency statement, Mr. Mayor.
It's been properly moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote? You close the vote.
It passes 5-2 with Councilmember Moffitt voting no and
I voted no.
And not pressing no.
Yes.
Nope. It's a 7-0.
No.
No, it's not 7-0.
It's confused.
It's both Councilmember Johnson and myself voted yes on that.
I voted no.
The vote is 5-2 with the Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, maybe we have
and
the
the mayor
wrong-
voting no. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll move the item, Mr. Mayor.
It's been properly moved and second. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote? Open the vote. It's not open. Okay, and close the vote.
It doesn't matter if it is open, Mr. Mayor, it doesn't work.
Open or not.
it passes 5-2 with Councilmember Moffitt voting no. Councilmember,
I think it's recording different people. I think the names are wrong.
Yeah.
I suspect,
Somebody ought to
if you
hand.
do a show of hands, we'll see who
I
voted
think
no.
we've got the
I
wrong.
voted no.
But they're marked, correct?
Yeah, Mark, yeah.
But I think they're voting differently.
Okay. All right, we'll get that fixed next time. You understand the vote? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I did vote for, as a yes, okay.
Okay, the manager would ask about
The
an
appeal process on a rezoning would be, I assume, a reconsideration, but I defer to the city attorney if there's any other action on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a discretionary matter for council. If you wanted to reconsider, you could. But there's no other legislative responsibility that you have here.
He wants to know how could he appeal? Reverend Torrin wants, wasn't that your question?
I mean, theoretically, he can,
Convince a council member to raise for reconsideration.
right.
It's no higher authority, that's what, I guess what you're looking for, other than the council. That's, the appeal would have to come here, or we'd have to reconsider what's been done. Okay, let's move to the last. Item 23. Resolution supporting the continuation of the federal deferred action for childhood arrivals, known as the DACA program.
Councilmember Johnson.
Uh,
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. I don't have any additional comments on the item. I just wanted to allow the community opportunity to come and speak on it if they were interested. Yeah, happy to move the item if there are no.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Madam Clerk, will you open the vote? Open the vote. Close the vote.
It passes 7-0.
Mr. Mayor,
Recognize Councilman Moffitt.
I did want to just take a moment and thank Councilmember Johnson for crafting the resolution and to say that I'm not just, as all of us did just now, fully support it, but I hope that Congress will actually intervene and continue the deferral program. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other items to come before the council? Not, we're adjourned at 9:40 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
It was
Oh, we're
unanimous.
going to hear from.
No, it did it with
They're
Charlie,
back on?
when Charlie voted
Oh,
against
it
the
did?
one zoning.
Oh, but not yours and mine.
If you could state your name and address, please.
Yes, Eliezer Posada. I live on 1325 apartment D, Juniper Street, here in Durham. I work for Centro Hispano, which is a community-based nonprofit. Most of you are familiar with it. Before my current position, I'm now the community engagement and advocacy manager. Before that, I was the youth coordinator. My job was to help